Good morning, New York. 8 o'clock, Tuesday the 31st of January, 1939, and you're listening to WKNY, 1240 on your dial. I'm Jack Dolan. Welcome to the Morning Line. Let me tell you what's on the docket this morning, because today's paper is a lot to absorb before your second cup of coffee. Yesterday, Adolf Hitler stood before the German Reichstag. That's the German parliament, ladies and gentlemen, 6 years to the day since he first took power. And he spoke for 2.5 hours. 2.5 hours. The man has a lot to say. Some of it we expected. Some of it was designed to sound reasonable. And some of it, if you read it carefully, should make the hair stand up on the back of your neck. Here in New York, a federal judge resigned yesterday, the second highest ranking jurist in the country, under a cloud that keeps getting darker. The story involves money, courtrooms, and a man who thought his robes protected him from everything. They did not. On the border between France and Spain, thousands of people are sleeping in the cold tonight, or trying to. Barcelona fell 5 days ago, and the road north is full of human beings with nowhere to go. And in the basement of Pupin Hall at Columbia University, right here in the city, a team of physicists last week split the uranium atom and released 200 million electron volts of energy. I'll say that again. They split the atom. And I'll explain what that means, because this may be the most important story in this morning's paper, and it got roughly the same column inches as a boxing card at the Coliseum, a full hour ahead. Let's get into it. But before we begin, we need something a little older and sweeter for a moment. Here it is, just for you. Adolf Hitler spoke yesterday. He always speaks on this date, January 30th, the anniversary of his coming to power in 1933. 6 years ago, Germany had a republic and a chancellor who played by the rules. Yesterday, Germany had Hitler in the Kroll Opera House, addressing the Reichstag for 2.5 hours. Let me walk you through the principal points because the speech deserves a careful reading. On the question of colonies, Hitler has been making noise about this for some time, and he made it again yesterday, loudly. Germany, he argued, is a nation of 135 people per square kilometer, with no colonies, no overseas reserves, and no room to expand. He called it a question of Lebensraum, living space. He spoke of Germany being prevented from expanding by what he called the continuing blindness of the former victor powers. That means us. That means Britain and France. He is arguing that his country was robbed at Versailles in 1918 and has a legitimate grievance. He presents this grievance in measured, almost legalistic terms. Don't let the tone fool you. On fascism, he gave a speech within the speech about Italy and Germany as the saviors of European civilization. He held up Mussolini's Italy as proof that fascism saved Rome from Bolshevism. He said, and I'm working from the official translation here, that anyone who walks through Rome or Florence and sees those monuments to human culture must understand what would have happened without Mussolini. I'll note only this. The monuments of Rome and Florence predate Mussolini by roughly 2,000 years. They didn't need him to survive. But this is how he frames the argument. And then, buried in the middle of the speech, but not buried enough, Hitler made a prediction. He called himself a prophet, said he'd been ridiculed before and proved right. And then he said that if another world war were to break out in Europe, provoked by what he called Jewish interests, the result would be the annihilation of the Jewish race in Europe. I want to stop on that for a moment. He said that in public, before the Reichstag, on the radio broadcast across Germany, the annihilation of the Jewish race. I'm not going to soften that or reframe it. That is what the elected, if we can still use that word, head of state of a major European power said yesterday, on the anniversary of his seizure of power. London's reaction, as of this morning, has been described as cautious. No immediate crisis is foreseen, the diplomatic dispatches say. Some of his passages caused concern, others were reassuring. I understand why professional diplomats read it that way. I find it harder to read it that way from where I sit. And on a morning that's asking something of all of us, here's Larry Clinton and his orchestra with a tune that says, whatever's coming, keep moving. now, and I mean this, the most extraordinary story in this morning's paper, which ran on page 1, but which I think deserves more than one reading. 6 days ago, on the 25th of January, in the basement of Pupin Hall at Columbia University on Morningside Heights, here in New York, a team of physicists split the uranium atom for the first time in the United States. Let me explain what that means, because the technical language can obscure what actually happened. For the last several months, scientists in Europe, specifically a German chemist named Otto Hahn working in Berlin, and Austrian physicists Lisa Meitner and Otto Frisch, discovered that if you fire a neutron at a uranium atom, the atom doesn't just change into a neighboring element the way radioactive decay normally works. It splits. It breaks almost in half into 2 large fragments, and in the process of splitting, it releases energy. How much energy? The Times reports 2 fragments. Call them 2 cannonballs, as one physicist put it, each carrying roughly 100 million electron volts. When you say it that way, to most people, it means nothing. Let me try another approach. A single chemical reaction, burning a piece of coal, say, releases a few electron volts. The uranium atom releases 200 million, in one split, in one invisible particle. The Columbia team, led by physicist John Dunning, working with Enrico Fermi and Herbert Anderson, among others, confirmed the European experiment last Thursday night. Dunning wrote in his diary that evening, "Believe we have observed new phenomenon of far-reaching consequences." Far-reaching consequences. That is one way to put it. On January the 26th, the very next day, physicist Niels Bohr, the Danish theorist who is considered by many the greatest living mind in physics, announced the results formally at a conference in Washington. He had just arrived in the United States. He brought the news across the Atlantic, and within days it was in every laboratory on the East Coast. Princeton, Berkeley, Chicago. Everybody dropped what they were doing and started repeating the experiment. Now, what does this mean? I want to be careful here because the science is real and the implications are genuinely unknown. What the physicists are now asking, and some of them are already losing sleep over this, is whether you can make the split produce more neutrons than you put in. If splitting one uranium atom releases 2 or 3 neutrons, and those neutrons split 2 or 3 more atoms, which release more neutrons, which split more atoms, you have what they call a chain reaction. Self-sustaining, accelerating. Leo Szilard, a Hungarian physicist now at Columbia, wrote to a colleague the same day Dunning confirmed the experiment. "I feel I ought to let you know of a very sensational new development in nuclear physics. The energy released in this new reaction must be very much higher than all previously known cases. And it might also lead to the large-scale production of energy, and unfortunately also perhaps to atomic bombs." He wrote that 6 days ago, and he asked his colleague not to publish it, because he understood what it would mean if the wrong people read it. I am not a scientist. I cannot tell you what comes next. I can tell you that men who have spent their lives studying the atom are using words like far-reaching consequences and atomic bombs, not as science fiction, but as near-term possibility. And I can tell you that Germany has physicists too. Very good ones. Hold that thought. We'll come back to it. Here's something bright and light before we go deeper. Glen Gray and the Casa Loma Orchestra with a song that proves some things are still sweet even now.
song. You're as sweet as a song. For you possess all the warm tenderness of auld lang syne. Sweet as a tune, serenade to the moon. You'll always be like the sweet harmony of sweet Adeline. Sweet as a song, you're as sweet as a song. You're a chorus of trees, you're a lovely reprise of Kiss Me Again. Darling, when you're in my arms, nothing could ever go wrong. As long as you remain a haunting refrain, you're sweet as a song.
Closer to home now, and closer to the bone. Yesterday, Martin Manton resigned from the federal bench. For those of you who don't follow the courts, Manton was the senior circuit judge of the United States Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit, sitting right here in New York. He was, by rank, the second highest judge in the country after the 9 men of the Supreme Court. He was appointed by Woodrow Wilson in 1916. At 36, the youngest federal judge in the United States, a Columbia lawman, a New Yorker, a success story. He resigned because Thomas Dewey, Manhattan's district attorney, a name you're going to be hearing more of, wrote a letter to the House Judiciary Committee recommending impeachment proceedings. The letter came the day before Manton quit. He didn't wait for the vote. What did Manton do? In the simplest terms, he sold justice. He accepted money, sometimes in the form of loans that were never repaid, sometimes outright payments through intermediaries, from litigants who had cases before his court. He then decided those cases in their favor. A cigarette lighter manufacturer loses a patent case in district court, pays a middleman named Fallon tens of thousands of dollars, and Manton reverses the decision on appeal. That is what is alleged. And the evidence from what's been reported appears substantial. How much money? The figure being discussed is in the neighborhood of $660,000, spread across years of rulings. In a city where the average working man earns less than $1,500 a year, that is not a modest sum. Manton's defense, he stated yesterday that he is defending his business dealings and denying that they influenced his decisions. I have been a journalist for 20 years, and I have heard a lot of denials. The interesting thing about this one is that he chose to resign rather than let the process play out. Draw your own conclusions. The deeper story here is about money and power and the Depression. Manton was a wealthy man before 1929. He had real estate in Queens, investments, a portfolio that looked solid. Then the market crashed. He had $1.8 million in mortgaged land at the time of the crash. What a man does when he's financially desperate and sitting in one of the most powerful chairs in American law. That's the story. It's not a pretty one. Here's Rudy Vallée and his orchestra, because after that story, something a little nostalgic feels exactly right.
returning to the light. It brings back other nights for you, it lies for you the past. A new love vainly tries to awake you and to take you to the sky. Though it burns all so bright, it will perish with the night, but an old flame never dies.
Barcelona fell 5 days ago. Franco's nationalist forces entered the city on the 26th of January, and the Republic, which had been fighting for its life for nearly 3 years, lost its capital. What is left of the Republican government is somewhere north of the city, heading toward the French border. The war, for all practical purposes, is over. What that has produced is this: hundreds of thousands of people on the roads of Catalonia moving north. Soldiers, civilians, old men and women who have never been outside their village in their lives, children. They are walking, most of them. Some on mules, some catching rides in trucks, many simply on foot in the January cold over mountain passes through the Pyrenees, because going back means prison or worse. France closed its border last week, initially turning them back. Yesterday, and this is the latest dispatch, the border has been reopened, but only to women, children, and the elderly. Male soldiers must wait. By the most conservative estimates, tens of thousands of people are standing at or near that border right now. The Times reports that all American citizens in the area have been accounted for and are safe. That is, apparently, the relevant consideration. I want to say something plain about this. The Spanish Republic was a democracy, an imperfect one, battered by 3 years of civil war and Soviet meddling on one side and German and Italian military intervention on the other, but a democracy. It held elections. It had a constitution. What defeated it was Franco's army, backed by Hitler's Condor Legion and Mussolini's divisions. Not rhetoric, airplanes and artillery. And now the people who defended that republic are standing in the snow at a French mountain pass, waiting to find out if they will be let in. France is worried about the politics of it. Too many refugees, too many Reds, as the French right wing puts it. They will be interned in camps along the Pyrenean coast, barbed wire on the beach. An American correspondent who was near the border this week described what he saw on the road. A column of people moving without stopping, day and night, carrying whatever they could. One woman walking with an infant, no shoes. One old man with a bird cage. That's the Spanish Republic in January of 1939. A bird cage and no shoes. Here's Cab Calloway and his orchestra, because sometimes you need something with that kind of energy to get through the morning.
hide behind. Oh, where shall I go? Where shall you go? With my hide behold. Now that my poor baby, he goes for Toscanini. Will he take the coffee? Will he take hot to me? Well, I've got to please my Minnie and give her Toscanini. And ask him if he'll swing it for me. I go on behalf of my friend Minnie and asking for a favor, sir, of you. It will never rest until you grant my request. This is what I ask you to do. Oh, Mr. Toscanini, it is not spring committee when you broadcast on your radio. Then you'll find improvement in your nice big open movement if you swing it with a high ho. You can go from 50 o'clock and go back to 50 again. You can have your station with go to town trumpet band. Mr. Toscanini, please get up swing for me when you broadcast on the radio. You can go from 50 o'clock and go back to 50 again. You can have your station with go to town trumpet band. When you broadcast on your radio,
A sweep of the international picture because the world is not standing still while Hitler makes speeches. Britain. The reaction in London to yesterday's Reichstag address has been, as I mentioned, cautious. The diplomatic word is no immediate crisis. Some passages were reassuring, others caused concern. Britain's new ambassador to Moscow, meanwhile, made a point of his first act in that posting. He expressed publicly and on the record Britain's readiness to cooperate with the Soviet Union in world affairs. That is not a routine courtesy call. That is a signal. London and Moscow have had a complicated relationship for 20 years. For Britain's envoy to his first act be a statement of solidarity, that tells you something about how they're reading the map in Whitehall right now. Sweden. The Swedish government has formally proposed universal military conscription. In the language of the proposal, this is a response to European tension. Sweden has been neutral for a long time, since before most living Swedes were born. For them to be discussing mandatory military service tells you what the view from Stockholm looks like in January of 1939. Japan. The Japanese war minister said yesterday, quietly but unmistakably, that Japan's army plans to remain in China for an indefinite period. Indefinite. They've been fighting there since 1937. 30 million Chinese people are now living under Japanese occupation. The war minister's statement was not an apology. It was a declaration of policy. And on the Vatican, Pope Pius XI called Italy's bishops to Rome for a surprise meeting. The subject, the Lateran Treaty, the 1929 agreement between the papacy and the Italian state. The Pope is reportedly furious with Mussolini's racial laws, the decrees issued last year that classify Italian Jews as a separate and inferior category of citizens. The Pope signed the treaty with Mussolini in good faith. Mussolini apparently has decided that what was signed in good faith doesn't have to be honored in good faith. The Pope is 81 years old and reportedly not well, but he called the bishops to Rome. Whatever he intends to say to them, he intends to say it. You never quite know what's around the corner in this world, And here's Glen Gray to remind you of that very fact.
Never know when love will say hello, when love gaily swinging will happen along and set you to singing your favorite love song. Don't be afraid. Comes to every man and to every maid. So take my advice and reserve 2 tickets to paradise, for you never know.
Wall Street this morning is doing what Wall Street does with a speech like Hitler's, parsing it for business implications. The trading community here wants to know whether the colonies' demand represents a genuine push or a negotiating posture. They want to know whether European trade routes stay open. They want to know whether the pound holds. This is not cynicism. This is how markets work, and I'll be honest with you. The financial analysis tells you something the diplomatic analysis sometimes misses. The men betting their capital this morning believe there will not be an immediate war. They may be right. They were also optimistic at Munich last September, 3 months before Germany took what was left of Czechoslovakia. Being right about the short term and wrong about the medium term is a particular specialty of financial markets. The advertising industry, meanwhile, is having a full and busy week. Campaigns, new accounts, the normal rhythm of commerce. Macy's is running something. Campbell's is running something. The machinery of American commercial life is turning as it does without pausing much for what's happening on the other side of the Atlantic. I'm not sure whether that's a strength or a weakness. Probably both. And the Hines trial continues downtown. That's the case of James Hines, the Tammany Hall district leader accused of protecting Dutch Schultz's numbers operation. Yesterday, witnesses confirmed a meeting between Hines and Schultz at a club. One witness, a man named Weinberg, whose suicide was announced in court but who appears to be alive enough to keep testifying, continues to provide uncomfortable details. Tammany's long shadow is getting a courtroom examination it would rather not have. Mr. Dewey again is involved. Mr. Dewey has had a busy month. Here's Guy Lombardo and his Royal Canadians. Because this city runs on a certain kind of music, and this is some of it.
friend of the whirling dervish. He's the sweetest one he's found. But every night in the mellow moonlight, while he's out dervishing with all his might, she gives him the runaround. All the boy friends of the whirling dervish are his best friends to his face. But there's no doubt when he isn't about, they all come hurrying to take her out. She leaves him a dizzy face. He dreams of a Hindu honeymoon. He doesn't dream like every night when he goes out to make an honest grouping. She steps out to make a lot of whooping. The love song of the whirling dervish has a sweet and tender sound. But will he burn if he ever should learn that while he's doing her a real good turn, she gives him the runaround? She's got a nervous, throwing him a curvish, which of course he doesn't deserve. His poor old whirling dervish.
Sports briefly, because the games go on. Tonight at the Coliseum, boxing. Pedro Montanez meets Johnny Vaughn in an 8-round bout at the top of the card. Montanez, the Puerto Rican lightweight, has been boxing at a high level for several years now. Vaughn is no pushover. 8 rounds, the Coliseum tonight. If you haven't got tickets, you know what to do this afternoon. In chess, and yes, chess makes the sports page as well it should. Samuel Reshevsky, the American grandmaster, currently sits in second place at the international tournament in Moscow. He trails Salo Floor, the Czech grandmaster, and the paper reports his prospects of catching Floor are, quote, slight. Reshevsky is 27 years old and one of the finest chess players in the world. Slight may be the newspaper's assessment. I wouldn't write him off. And the Times sports column today takes note of a trend the writer calls catching, meaning contagious enthusiasm for new things. The piece wanders pleasantly across several sports without arriving at any strong conclusion, which is exactly what a good Tuesday sports column should do. Here's Larry Clinton and his orchestra with something that'll put a whistle in your step on the way to wherever you're going today.
Start riding to whistle loud and long. Oh, hum a merry tune. Just do your best and take a rest and sing yourself a song. When there's too much to do, don't let it bother you. Don't get your troubles, try to be done like the cheerful Piccadilly and whistle while you work. Come on, get smart, tune up and start. You whistle while you work.
culture this morning. MGM has announced its casting for a new production called They Call It Glamour. Hedy Lamarr and Robert Taylor in the lead roles. Miss Lamarr, an Austrian actress who arrived in Hollywood last year after a very complicated exit from Europe, and whose story is itself worth a picture, is one of the most interesting presences in pictures right now. Taylor needs no introduction. MGM knows what it's doing with this pairing. Meanwhile, over at 20th Century Fox, some unusual news. The studio has suspended the contracts of the Ritz brothers. The Ritz brothers, Al, Harry, and Jimmy, have been a fixture in Fox comedies for several years. What exactly has happened between them and the studio is not yet clear, but in Hollywood, suspended contracts is rarely good news for the talent. The books desk at the Times reviews Iron Will this morning, a title about determination in difficult circumstances, which feels on this particular Tuesday in January rather on the nose. The review is positive. And on the advertising front, which I mention because advertising is the engine that keeps this broadcast on the air and the Times on your doorstep, the industry continues to expand, new accounts, new campaigns. The commerce of American life moves forward. Whether it fully grasps what it's moving toward is a separate question. Here's Rudy Vallée. And if you've ever met someone who made you wish you could hold on to a moment, this one's for you.
As we shook hands, she was just Miss Jones to me. Then I said, Miss Jones, you're a girl who understands I'm a man who must be free. And all at once I lost my breath, and all at once was scared to death, and all at once I owned the earth and sky. Now I've met Miss Jones, and we'll keep on meeting till we die, Miss Jones and I.
Something from a place that feels very far away from European politics this morning. The Casa Loma Orchestra with a little Hawaiian interlude. It is Tuesday morning, the last day of January, 1939. In 9 months, if the historians I've been reading are right, and I believe they are, the world we know today will be unrecognizable. I don't say that to alarm you. I say it because I think you deserve to hear it plainly from a man who reads the papers for a living. Let me tell you what I take away from this morning's news. Hitler spoke for 2.5 hours yesterday. He was provocative. He was aggressive. He was also, at moments, careful to sound reasonable. Careful to say peace enough times that the men in London can tell their newspapers no immediate crisis is expected. I have been watching this man for 6 years. I watched him take the chancellorship in 1933. I watched him rearm Germany in defiance of Versailles. I watched him take the Rhineland, then Austria, then the Sudetenland. At each point, someone said, no immediate crisis expected. At each point, they were right about the immediate and wrong about everything else. The speech he gave yesterday included a prediction, a prophecy, he called it, about the annihilation of European Jews if another war breaks out. He said that in public, into a microphone, in front of a parliament. When I want to be very clear about something, this is not normal political rhetoric, even by the standards of 1939. Political leaders do not make prophecies about the extermination of ethnic minorities and then claim to be men of peace. These two things are not compatible, and I think every American listener owes it to themselves and to the people those words were aimed at to hear both of them at the same time. At the same time, in the basement of a building 12 blocks north of this studio, a group of physicists split the uranium atom and released 200 million electron volts. The man who confirmed it wrote in his diary, far-reaching consequences. Leo Szilard, who understood what a chain reaction would mean, immediately asked that the results not be published, because he understood that Germany has physicists, good ones, and that a chain reaction can be used for power, or for a bomb. These two things exist in the same world, in the same week. A man in Berlin making predictions about annihilation, and a man in a basement on Morningside Heights writing far-reaching consequences in a private diary. I don't pretend to know what happens next. I'm a radio man, not a prophet, but I know what the pattern looks like. I know that nations which are rearming don't stop on their own. I know that borders which are closing to refugees don't usually open again quickly. I know that when a physicist tells you to keep quiet about something because the wrong people might read it, that physicist has thought about it harder than most of us have. What can a citizen of New York do with all of this? I've asked myself that question every morning for 6 years now, and I'll give you the same answer I give myself. Keep your eyes open. Read the paper. Don't let the comfortable parts of the world, and there are comfortable parts. The markets are up, and MGM is casting pretty pictures. And the Coliseum has a boxing card tonight. Don't let those things be the only thing you see. The woman at the French border with no shoes and a birdcage is not a metaphor. She is a person. The physicist writing far-reaching consequences in his private diary last Thursday night is not being dramatic. He is being precise. We are not at war, but we are not as far from it as some would like to believe. And on this particular Tuesday morning, in this particular city, on this particular radio station, I think you deserve to hear that said out loud. I'm Jack Dolan. This is the Morning Line on WKNY, 1240 on your dial. Stay informed, stay sharp, and take care of each other out there. We'll close the morning with this from the Larry Clinton and his orchestra, a number about the things that stay the same even when everything around them is changing.
Where in the world you may be.